Hey everybody, Jim Ingersoll here with the Real Estate Investor Success Podcast. I'm glad to be with you guys again. We are in total lockdown. It seems like actually about 20% of the country is in lockdown right now as we go through this pandemic. People in California, people in New York, Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of fear. And a lot of that fear is going to lead to opportunities in the near future. If you get good at solving problems and connecting with people the right way. And that's what we're going to talk through today with my friend and guest today, Kathy Kennebrook. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jim? Good to be on the call. Welcome, everyone.
And this is a crazy time. I mean, never in our lifetime, Kathy, have we had a national, worldwide pandemic, right?
I agree. It's been just crazy. Here we're in the more middle part of Florida, so it hasn't been too bad for us yet.
Well, you guys aren't locked down yet, and we're not locked down yet in Virginia, but who knows by the time this thing comes out where the country will be at here very soon. It's created a lot of fear. A lot of real estate investors are like stuck on a treadmill trying to figure out what they want to do or sticking their head in the sand. But I think it's a good time to work on your skills, get your marketing plan ready, because there's going to be new opportunities in the near future.
Exactly. We're working every day, and we have sellers that are calling us every day. As you know, I've got a marketing machine in place where we do residual mailings, and we're taking the time to follow up with semi-motivated sellers because this is the time that they're making a decision as to whether or not they need to get that home sold. And as you said, you now become the problem solver. So don't get stuck in that place of fear and not do anything, because you'll really miss out on some tremendous opportunities that are presenting themselves right now.
And it's a good time to help people. So it isn't that you're like a greedy real estate investor. You've got people with legitimate needs right now. The stock market has sort of crashed and unemployment's jacking up, and people don't know what to do, and they need income. And a lot of people have equity in their houses, particularly if it's an absentee owned house. We talked about probate, burned out landlord, whatever it is. I mean, a lot of states right now are saying you can't even evict people. So that's going to create a whole new burned out landlord, I think. But you can solve those problems as a real estate investor if you connect with the right people. You agree, don't you, Kathy?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, even like in my case here in Florida, we have a lot of estate and probate properties and things like that, where families that we're already working with, that are already in my pipeline, that hadn't made a decision yet as to whether or not they wanted to sell. Now the situation is changing, and their financial situations are changing, and now they need the cash more than ever. So like you said, we become then a problem solver for those sellers.
So let's start there. I think follow-up is really critical, and I think it's the best F word ever made, follow-up. So everybody that's talked to a motivated seller, every house you've bought in the last 12 months, go back and talk to them as well, because they may know somebody. But how do you recommend people keep track of those old leads, Kathy? Because unless you've got like a CRM or Podio or something, it gets a little tricky.
Okay, there are two ways that we use to follow up with semi-motivated sellers. First of all, you know that I test and I track everything in my business,
Yes,
and that's an ongoing, constant thing that we do. So what we've discovered in our business is that about 18% of our sellers that we're working with don't have computers. So what we do is we have two ways to follow up. One is by using an autoresponder system for those who do have computers. Very simple. You download your message, and the message is something really simple like, hey, it's Kathy again. When you're ready to sell, I'm ready. That simple, short, easy. And that goes out like every 30 days. For the ones who don't have computers, we use a postcard method for them, basically the same message, and we send that out. I also use a software product that was developed for me and for all of my students a long time ago, called Real Prospect. And Real Prospect kind of just keeps track of everything. It sends you reminder messages every day. Hey, you need to follow up with so-and-so. Hey, you need to start this mailing, or whatever that might be. So that's the way that we are doing the follow-up in our business. And I'm not kidding you guys. 40% of the total deals that you will ever do in your business, no matter what your marketing is doing, is going to come from the follow-up. You already paid the money. You already have the person in your pipeline. Take the time to follow up and make the deal.
I think it's important right now, given that we're in this global pandemic mode, that investors have empathy and they start conversations by listening. You'll understand the pain point and the motivation a little bit easier than normal.
Right.
But how do you like tweak things given the environment we're in right now?
Well, basically, when we send out the letters that I already send out have a response mechanism in them where the seller is giving me the information that I need to determine whether or not there's a deal there to be made to begin with. So I'm already getting most of the information that I need from the seller, so I can already kind of see the pain point. For the ones that we are following up with, we just start the conversation. Hey, how are you doing? Have you made a decision about the home yet? We keep everything very soft, very gentle. We don't push. I've never pushed. We don't push them to do anything. And remember, when you're following up with a semi-motivated seller, you've already created the relationship with that seller. You've already gained credibility with them through that follow-up. So they already have a trust in you to begin with, and they're much more likely to open up and talk to you. And that's what we're finding in our business.
Those are good tips, and I know you've spoken to my event, so I've had the pleasure of seeing some of your marketing. It's very creative and very unique, and it's very responsive. So congrats on putting all that together. So you're still doing a lot of direct mail. Your direct mail is different than everybody else's. We went back in way back in like 2006. I did thousands of direct mails with postcards that I had to print up at Office Max and put my own stamps and all that on. All that's automated nowadays. But then the trend went to everybody started doing yellow letters, me too, and did thousands of those and got lots of deals. But then that trend changed. And you've always been like on the cutting edge of that, Kathy. So I want to congratulate you. You don't have to give away your secrets, but you've got very highly converting direct mail.
I do. Two reasons for that. One is because I do something nobody else does. One is we have a response mechanism in the body of the letter that basically tells the seller exactly what I need in order to determine if there's a deal there. If you don't tell your seller what you want them to do, they're not going to do anything at all. That's number one. Number two is the other thing that nobody does. I use very responsible list brokers. Within the body of each list that I use, and I've got 12 different direct mail campaigns that are very targeted to specific sellers. So within each one of those lists, there's specific criteria that we use in order to hone that list in even further to bring in the most highly motivated sellers within each group. And nobody does it. And so basically, I don't get the garbage mail. If I'm spending the money and I'm spending the money on the letter, I'm spending the money on the postage and all of that, I'm not sending 1,000 or 2,000 pieces out and know that half of it's garbage. What a waste. So basically we're sending out a really quality letter with really quality language with that response mechanism to a very highly targeted list. And that's why we're getting the responses that I get. And then again, when the responses come to my desk, they're already pre-screened with most of the information I need. Heck, Jim, when I get responses from sellers in, most of them have 6 or 8 photographs in them. So tell me, am I working with a motivated seller or not?
Yeah, so
I got it licked.
How about that? So you send them mail, you ask them to do certain things, and then they return it to you, and that's how you know they're motivated.
Exactly. And they respond to me in exactly the way I ask them to and provide me with what I want. And so I already know that I'm 60% of the way there before I ever make the first contact with that seller. And we've been doing it like this for like 14 years already. Just like you said, all of the other stuff that went by, the postcards and that whole yellow letter thing that went by and all of that, and I chuckled all the way because, and then when everybody was doing pre-foreclosures and short sales, we chugged right through and I was picking up all the other sellers that everybody was letting go by the wayside. So it works. It just, no matter what your market is doing, direct mail, targeted quality direct mail works.
So if you've got the right list, which is, a lot of times absentee owned, equity, probate, whatever, divorce, water list, whatever it is, and then you send them the right thing in the mail and ask them to respond, then you get a funnel, constant funnel that creates deal flow for you. with motivated.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so
And then, okay.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then once again, if somebody says, oh, I don't know, I just can't make a decision right now, or you make the offer and they go, are you out of your mind? All they're saying is, no, not today, but continue to follow up with me until I change my mind. Get your ego out of the equation and stop throwing those good deals in the garbage. I mean, you already paid the money, you've got them in your pipeline. Continue to follow up with that seller until they tell you to go away. In 40% of the cases, I'm buying those houses.
There is gold in follow-up, Kathy. I agree. It's so easy, but everyone's afraid to do it. But I think it's good to follow up until somebody tells you to stop following up.
Exactly. Or they
Always
sell the
follow
home to
up.
someone else or something else.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. So you come at it with the premise that you're going to help solve their problem. They're sitting on property with taxes, probably deferred maintenance, insurance. Vacant insurance is very expensive. And they don't know what to do, so they sort of get locked. And especially right now, given the pandemic that we're in, they need solutions to the problems they have with these assets more than ever.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, because now you've got people locked up in various parts of the nation, and the problem still exists. And now they're even further at a lack of how to deal with it, like you're saying, maintenance and vandalism and all of those kinds of things. And insurance and all of that.
So what do you think is going to happen with the market? You guys have been red hot in Florida for a long time. I'll tell you, here in Virginia, even during the pandemic, we're not locked down. And I know people that have listed in the last 2 or 3 days that have received multiple offers because inventories are low, rates are low. What's your crystal ball say that may happen down the road here?
Honestly, I don't know, but I do know that the rates are lower, but right now the buyers are scared. And so it's opening up another market because buyers are hanging. I've been talking regularly to the realtors that I work with. We have a team of realtors that work with us, and they're losing deals. People are backing. Even though the rates are low, they're backing because they don't know what's going to happen. So that creates a whole nother problem that potential sellers are now losing the deals that they had with buyers. And so it's yeah. So it's going to create, I think it's going to create more deals, down the road, more availability of homes than there have been in the past.
I've heard from two realtors in the last 2 days that are losing deals to investors who are also getting cold feet. They're nervous, they're afraid. One's on a multifamily, one's on a potential flip. One of them, the private lender is going to walk away, and one of them, the investor is walking away.
Right.
Opportunity is going to be knocking, I think. So who knows? And our rates, I mean, they were really low. Like a week ago, they were 3%, but the last 2 or 3 days, they've jumped up to 4.5% to 5%. I don't know what's going on with that. It's crazy.
Yes, I did know. I read that. I noticed that. So I'm not sure. I think the other possibility too is the opportunity to create deals with sellers taking over the mortgage for the balance, taking over. Subject to the balance of the mortgage. And so that'll create situations for us and create new deals for us without having to worry about where the money's going to come from.
It's nice to be able to do that when you can. I agree. And I think that is a niche market that's coming very, very soon as people lose jobs, they go on unemployment, they can't keep up with their mortgage payment. But they have rates at like 3.5%, 4%, is a good opportunity for subject to. I agree. So your market.
Yeah, I do too.
Wow.
Say again.
Are you market for subject to as well?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the direct mail campaigns I've always done. Basically, the way that I've always done it is to create direct mail campaigns where you don't have to necessarily worry about where your funding is coming from.
I like that. So, and I'll put a link into my website here so people can click into that and connect with you, of course, to check that out.
Okay, cool.
Which website would you prefer to use?
The www.marketingmagiclady.com.
All right, I like it. How did you get the name Marketing Magic Lady, Magic Marketing Lady?
Nope, it's Marketing Magic Lady, the Marketing Magic Lady.
Got it. How did you get that name? I like it.
It actually came, I was coerced into it by a mentor many years ago.
I like it.
Long story, but that's how that happened.
Well, and so obviously you've invested in yourself as well. Was that mentor somebody who was able to help you all those years back?
Oh, absolutely. And I got to tell you, Jim, mentoring is a whole nother ballgame that's so important. I have a mentoring program for my students as well. And I paid a lot of money for mentoring early on in the ball game. And I tell you, it's definitely it threw my learning curve way up there. I mean,
It
we got
helps.
moving on some things a whole lot faster than we ever would have.
You and I have always both gone to a lot of live events, and I'm thinking back to way back in the beginning. I did a lot of them right there in Florida,
Yep.
in the Tampa area with like Peter Fortunato, Jack Miller, John Schaub, Jimmy Napier up in Pensacola. And those guys, 10, 15 years ago really had a big impact on me. So I just wanted to give that shout out because it's always good to have gratitude, especially in chaos, isn't it?
Yep. In my case, it was Ron LeGrand, of course,
Yeah,
as one of my very early mentors.
excellent.
And then Richard Powelson was another early mentor for me. What an amazing man he really was. So
Yeah.
those were kind of two of my real early mentors. And then of course, Jack Shea and Pete Fortunato and all those guys. For me here in Florida, those are our living room kind of guys. Where we just got together and did a lot of, before it was even like training. I remember sitting in a living room with Pete Fortunato, laughing at me for being out training and saying, "Oh, I would never do that. I'd just rather people sit like this." And look where he is now. So.
Yeah.
Every time I see him, I remember to mention that.
And he will bend your mind, that's for sure. And I'm glad you mentioned Jack Shea is a good friend of mine as well. And he's helped so many people on privacy, trust, asset protection, IRAs, and just as these people get older and older, I've got a lot of love and respect for them. So thanks.
Oh, I know, I do too. I mean, they have such great minds, and like you said, when I sit down with Pete, for example, and you walk away from the table just shaking your head because he's scary smart, just incredible.
Loves McDonald's. All right, so that's all good. So you gotta have a targeted list, and then you've got to generate leads with direct mail. And then as the leads come in, the next step would be to qualify those leads, but you've sort of pre-qualified them in your marketing, right? So is the final
correct. And I'm the only person in the world that does it. And I don't know why, because especially for, a newbie investor, a beginner investor, that takes like a whole obstacle out of the equation for them. And then the seasoned investors, it takes the time element out of it for them because the leads are on their desk. They've already got most of the information that they need without having to go do a bunch of looking and all of that kind of stuff. And it's real easy to determine which ones are motivated and which ones aren't. So I've been doing that for years and years. So very, very very specific list to the specific type of seller you're targeting, using specific criteria within that list to hone in on the most highly qualified sellers, and a quality letter with a response mechanism. Those are the secrets.
And then when you receive that response mechanism back, you call them, and how does that conversation typically go? Do you thank them for sending it to you, or how do you do it?
Oh, absolutely. And usually I can tell by the like for example, I just got one in, and it's a seller I'm working with right now. The letter came back, and it came back in a 9.5 by 11 clasp envelope.
Wow.
He sent me a copy of his deed, which I didn't ask him for. He sent me a plat map, which I didn't ask him for. He sent me a 2-page letter telling me everything about the property since his grandfather built it, and 8 photographs. Is that a motivated seller? Obviously. And so the conversation basically went, based on what I read in the letter. It gave me a ton of information to be able to start a really comfortable conversation with that seller. And we're in the middle of working on that deal right now.
That's outstanding. Okay, well, I think deals are going to get deeper. I think there'll be more equity generated from the pandemic, and a little bit, there's a lot of deal flow to go, but everyone's got to get rid of their fear right now. And it's a good time to be ready to go and strike, I think, as soon as we can start helping people and take the approach that you're not a greedy real estate investor, you're a problem solver, right, and you got to get your message in front of enough of the right people to make those deals. I think deals are going to be ripe for the picking, Kathy.
I do too. I absolutely do. But folks, do it with integrity. You know,
Glad you said that.
you know that I've always, always advocated if it's not win-win with me and the seller, I'm not doing the deal, period. And folks, do it with integrity. You know, don't go in to take advantage of anybody. Do it, you know, make it a win-win with you and the seller. And if you can't, walk away.
You know, looking back over all the people you've seen and worked with over the years, Kathy, what do you think are some of the differentiators between those who make it long term and those who get frustrated and give up?
Continuity, number one, procrastination and continuity. If you don't keep doing it, like for example, I have a student in the DC area, really nice gentleman. He's a dad. He's got 3 girls. He's out of the military now. Really nice fella. He bought my system off my website. Never met me, never heard me speak anywhere. Went through it, read it, implemented, started residual mailings just like I taught him to do. And within a year, he'd done over $1 million in deals and was named the DC Real Estate Investor of the Year. And so a lot of it has to do with continuity and being willing to do the residual mailings. Now, in my system, Jim, I give them 3 different ways to do it. So if you're a newbie investor and you want to start doing direct mail campaigns yourself, have at it. That's how I got started. I was doing 50, 100 letters a week. And that's enough to get a deal done. If you want to hire someone, I explain to them exactly how to hire someone, how to do the 1099, all that is covered. And then I have 3 companies that'll do all the work for you. So you get to pick, you know, or if you're a newbie now and then you want to grow into something else later, I give them all of those options so their business can grow.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so everybody listening, I hope you're ready to go. You might want to go back and listen to this again because opportunity is going to be knocking. And you got to be ready to open the door. And that starts with always, every deal starts with a motivated seller, listening to what the motivation is, and then getting that deal done, D-O-N-E. But you got to be ready to take massive action. And you've got to, I like the way you said, you got to be consistent, persistent. You don't do, it's not one and done with marketing. I always say, Kathy, marketing is NSM, meaning never stop marketing. All of us need to be marketing 24/7 every day.
Exactly. Even if you're, you know, and actually one of my favorite speakers, Cam Dunlap, equated it to a faucet that you either set it at a trickle or set it at a gush or somewhere in between, but you can't ever stop. And so, and I really like that analogy a lot, and I use that a lot myself. You have to be doing something, or your business is just gonna be, you know, going up and down and up and down and up and down. And you want a very, very consistent number of sellers contacting you all the time.
Okay, any final words of encouragement for people that are stuck in the pandemic and having fear right now, Kathy?
Yeah, absolutely. Turn off the television and get off Facebook. Seriously, there's just so much out there. There's so much fake news. There's so much garbage. You know, maybe listen to the news for a half an hour a day and then shut it off. Live your life. Get busy. Get out there. Continue doing your business. Continue doing the follow-up with the sellers you're already working with. You know, and there are massive opportunities coming up. You just can't stop. You just can't get frozen in fear. And I know so many people do that, and you just can't. Just take a deep breath and move on one step at a time and keep going.
Take a deep breath and move on. I love it. All right, live life, live your dreams, carve out the year that you want for the rest of this year.
Absolutely.
The pandemic is going to end, and we are going to be past this. And opportunity is going to knock. So you got to be ready to go. Click on the link, check out Kathy's offers. Any final words, Kathy? I appreciate your being my guest today.
No, I thank you for having me on board. Also, when they do invest in what I'm doing, they also get me for a year to help them, so by email. And so it's not like I'm going to go away from them and just leave them out trying to do things on their own. So that's something else that I really pride myself on, is the opportunity to help my folks be really, really successful at what they're doing. So get out there, get moving, do your marketing, find the sellers, find the deals, and be very consistent about what you're doing in your business.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. All my best to you. Godspeed, and stay safe there in beautiful Florida, where I was just 2 weeks ago before all this craziness hit. And
Yeah.
I really appreciate you very much. I hope you have an awesome day.
Thanks so much. And to everybody, stay really safe out there. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you for having me on the call, Jam.
And all of our listeners, thank you. I hope everybody is spending extra time with your family as well, reading some books, investing in yourself, building your systems, your marketing plans, and your processes out right now would be a good plan so that you are ready to go. Thanks for everybody who shares this content, leaves us reviews, and leave us your questions. I'll get to them as well. Thanks everybody for tuning into the Real Estate Success Podcast today.